When you begin to grow, you may think everyone around you will cheer you on, clap for you, and want the best for you, but reality teaches a harsher truth. Your growth doesn't just change you. It changes the way others see themselves in relation to you. For some, it's inspiring. For others, it's a mirror they'd rather smash than look into. See, the moment you start improving, whether it's your mindset, your career, your health, your relationships, you unintentionally hold up a reflection of what they're not doing. And that reflection can be brutal. It exposes insecurities they've been burying under excuses for years. It forces them to confront the fact that they've been standing still while you've been moving forward. And not everyone is ready to face that reality. Here's the part that stings. People who once supported you when you were comfortable, safe, and unthreatening may begin to pull away the moment you step outside of their idea of your lane. They liked you when you were relatable, when your life mirrored theirs, when your struggles were similar to theirs. But once you start breaking through those limitations, it disturbs the equilibrium. You're no longer one of them, and that difference makes them uncomfortable. Instead of asking themselves, what can I do to level up to? They think, if you're moving ahead, that must mean I'm falling behind. And human pride doesn't take kindly to feeling left behind. Understand this: your growth is not a crime. But to some, it will feel like one. Not because you've done anything wrong, but because your progress disrupts the unspoken agreements they've made with themselves about what's possible in life. You've become living proof that their excuses are just excuses. And when someone is deeply attached to those excuses, they will defend them at all costs, even if that means resenting you. It's easier for them to decide that you've changed for the worse than to admit they could be doing more with their own lives. Sometimes the hate won't be loud. It won't come in the form of direct confrontation. It'll be subtle. A shift in tone when you talk about your wins. A backhanded compliment. A joke that's not really a joke. They might stop inviting you to certain gatherings, not because they've forgotten, but because your presence would force them to feel something they'd rather avoid. You're a reminder of effort, of ambition, of the road they didn't take. That reminder is uncomfortable to sit next to at dinner. But you can't let their discomfort dictate your pace. You can't shrink so others can feel safe in their stagnation. The truth is, you were never meant to stay the same just to keep people comfortable. You were meant to grow, to expand, to push past limits, your own and the ones others try to place on you. And yes, that will cost you some connections. It will make certain relationships fade or even turn sour. But those losses are not your punishment, they're your pruning. What you lose in fake acceptance, you gain in freedom and authenticity. If you want to keep moving forward, you have to learn how to live with the fact that your growth will unsettle people. Not everyone will clap. Not everyone will understand. And that's okay. You're not here to win universal approval. You're here to honor the potential inside you. The one that whispers at night that you can do more, be more, live more. That whisper is worth protecting, even if it means walking alone for a while. The ones who truly belong in your life won't just tolerate your growth. They'll grow with you. The dangerous mistake is thinking you need to explain yourself to those who've turned cold. You don't owe them a defense. You don't need to make your light dimmer so theirs feels brighter. In fact, trying to keep everyone comfortable is the fastest way to betray yourself. There's a difference between kindness and self-betrayal. You can be kind without compromising your own progress. You can be compassionate without standing still so someone else feels better about not moving. Remember this: you are not responsible for managing how others feel about your evolution. Some will look at your growth and see possibility for themselves. Others will see it as proof of their own procrastination. Their reaction is theirs to own, not yours to fix. The sooner you stop seeking validation from those who resent your progress, the faster you'll be able to move in peace. The right people will be drawn to the person you're becoming, not the person you had to outgrow to get here. The silent truth no one tells you is that growth is not just about building a better life. It's about being willing to let go of the parts of your old life that can't survive at the next level. And sometimes those parts are people. It hurts, but it's necessary. You can't carry everyone with you, especially those who would rather see you stuck than see you soar. You don't have to hate them. You don't have to fight them. Just keep moving, keep rising, and let your results speak. The ones who are meant to walk beside you will find a way to match your pace. The rest will fade into the background, and that's exactly where they belong. One of the hardest lessons you will ever learn is that not everyone around you is rooting for you, even if they smile in your face. Some people don't just dislike your growth, they're actively waiting for you to fail. And they'll never admit it. They will hide it under a mask of politeness, maybe even under the guise of being concerned for you, but underneath, there's a quiet satisfaction every time you stumble. These are the people who will clap the loudest when you're struggling, but fall silent the moment you start to win. They operate in the shadows, and their weapon of choice isn't always open attack. It's subtle sabotage. It can start small. A discouraging word here, a seed of doubt planted there. They'll tell you things like, "Are you sure you can handle that?" Or, "I just don't want you to get your hopes up." They present it as caring, but what they're really doing is projecting their own limitations onto you. If they wouldn't dare try something themselves, they don't want to watch you try and succeed, because it forces them to face their own fear. Their goal isn't to inspire you, it's to keep you manageable, predictable, and safe for them to be around. But safe, in their eyes, means stuck. Some of them will take it further. They'll talk behind your back, twisting your achievements into arrogance, making your progress sound like luck, or worse, like you cheated to get it. They'll tell others they've changed, but they won't say that you've grown, that you've worked, that you've sacrificed. They'll make it sound like change is a flaw, like ambition is a disease. This is because they know they can't compete with your effort, so they'll try to discredit it instead. They can't beat you at the game, so they'll try to convince others you never played fair in the first place. And then there are those who will stand close to you, just long enough to gather your energy, your ideas, your plans, and then use them for themselves or leak them to others. They want the benefits of being near your fire, but they secretly hope you burn out. They'll drain you emotionally, always coming to you with problems but never showing up to celebrate your wins. If they can't rise with you, they'd rather watch you sink. This is the silent war you don't see coming, because it's waged with fake smiles, friendly words, and carefully disguised envy. The most dangerous part is how subtle it all can be. These people often aren't obvious enemies. They can be friends you've known for years, coworkers you trust, even family members. And because you care about them, you let your guard down. You don't realize that their support comes with conditions, that they're fine with you as long as you don't surpass their idea of who you should be. The moment you step beyond that box, they feel threatened, and threatened people act in ways that can catch you off guard if you're not paying attention. This is why discernment becomes essential. You can't assume everyone clapping for you wants you to win. You have to watch what people do when you're not around, how they speak about you to others, how they react when you hit a milestone. Do they celebrate you without hesitation, or do they immediately change the subject? Do they offer help when you're pushing towards something big, or do they suddenly get too busy to be there? These patterns tell you more than their words ever will. Protecting yourself doesn't mean becoming paranoid or shutting everyone out. It means setting boundaries, keeping certain parts of your vision to yourself, and surrounding yourself with people who are not intimidated by your success. You need people who understand that your win is not their loss. People who can stand beside you without secretly competing with you or hoping for your downfall. And yes, finding those people is rare, which is why you must value them deeply when you do. The reality is, the higher you climb, the more visible you become, and the more visible you become, the more you'll attract both genuine supporters and silent enemies. This is part of the price of growth. It's not personal in the way you might think. It's a reflection of how others choose to handle their own insecurities. Your light can either guide them forward or cast a shadow they can't stand to be in. How they respond isn't up to you, but who you allow close to you is. You will eventually learn to recognize the small tells. The hesitation before they congratulate you. The way they only reach out when they need something, but disappear when you're thriving. The casual comments that seem harmless but chip away at your confidence if you let them. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. The choice then becomes, will you slow down to keep these people in your life, or will you keep moving and let them fall away? One choice keeps you stagnant, the other sets you free. Growth demands that you protect your energy from those who pretend to wish you well, while secretly rooting for your downfall. That protection doesn't always mean confrontation. Sometimes it simply means stepping back, reducing your access, and letting time and distance do the work. You don't owe these people an explanation. Your only responsibility is to stay true to the vision you're building, to keep showing up for yourself, and to keep moving forward no matter who decides to quietly step into the role of opposition. Because at the end of the day, their silent war can only win if you give it your attention. And the most powerful move you can make is to keep succeeding without ever letting them distract you from the path you've chosen. The truth is, people's opinions of you are rarely about you. They are a mirror reflecting their own insecurities, fears, and limitations. When you start to rise, you unknowingly hold up that mirror to them, and they don't always like what they see. Your success, your growth, your courage, it all becomes a silent reminder of what they aren't doing, what they've been avoiding, or the dreams they've quietly buried. And instead of facing those truths within themselves, some people take the easier route. They project it onto you as dislike, criticism, or even outright hatred. This is not because you've wronged them, but because your very presence challenges their comfort zone. Think about it. When you're standing still in life, blending in with the crowd, few people take issue with you. You're safe. You don't disrupt their world. But the moment you decide to change, whether it's getting healthier, chasing a bigger career, building discipline, or breaking away from old habits, you disturb the balance they've built. You stop being a mirror they're comfortable looking into, and instead you become a spotlight shining on the things they'd rather keep in the dark. This discomfort can be so strong that they start to convince themselves you've changed, for the worse. When the truth is, you've simply grown beyond the version of yourself they were comfortable with. That's why sometimes the people who knew you the longest struggle the most with your growth. They've built an identity for you in their minds, one that fits neatly into their narrative. Maybe you were always the quiet one, the laid-back one, the one who never outshined them. When you break out of that role, when you start speaking up, setting boundaries, achieving goals, they feel like they're losing control over the story. In their minds, if you can change, then maybe everything else in their life can change too. And that realization can be terrifying for them. It's easier to resent you than to confront their own need for transformation. You also have to understand that for some people, watching someone else succeed feels like proof that they've wasted time. If you come from the same background, the same struggles, maybe even the same starting line, and you've managed to break free while they're still stuck, it forces them to face a harsh truth. They could have done more. That realization can sting so deeply that they'll choose to hate the reminder instead of using it as motivation. They won't always say it out loud, but their actions will reveal it. The sudden distance, the backhanded compliments, the quiet undermining, it all stems from the same root cause. Your life makes them reflect on theirs, and they don't like what they see. This is why it's so important not to take sudden hate or criticism personally. It's rarely about the specifics of what you're doing. It's about what you represent. You represent change. You represent courage. You represent the possibility of breaking free. And for someone who's been telling themselves for years that it's too late, that it's too hard, that people like us don't get those opportunities, your existence becomes proof that those excuses are lies. That truth can either inspire them to rise, or push them to resent you for exposing it. The silent war you face is often fought in the shadows of people's own self-doubt. They might talk to others about you instead of to you. They might minimize your wins so they feel less threatened. They might start picking apart small flaws in your journey so they can avoid acknowledging the bigger picture. That you've done what they didn't have the courage to attempt. These are defense mechanisms, a way to protect their ego from feeling inadequate. It's not right, but it's human nature. For some, your job in moments like this is to stay rooted in your own truth. You cannot shrink yourself to make others feel more comfortable without sacrificing your own growth. You cannot dim your light so that others don't have to squint. People who are meant to be in your life will adjust to the brightness. They'll learn to stand beside you instead of hiding in the shadow. And those who can't handle it, they will drift away, sometimes with bitterness, sometimes with blame, but always with the same underlying cause. They weren't ready to confront what your life reflected back to them. It's also worth noting that sometimes the people who start to hate you because of your growth aren't fully aware of why they feel the way they do. They might genuinely believe they're reacting to something you've done, when in reality, they're reacting to the discomfort of their own unfulfilled potential. That's why explaining yourself rarely changes anything in these situations. You could break down your intentions, your struggles, your sacrifices, and they still wouldn't hear it because their issue isn't with your choices, it's with the reflection those choices force them to see. So you have to make peace with the fact that not everyone will clap when you win, not everyone will support your evolution, and not everyone will like the version of you that refuses to settle. Some people will quietly root against you, others will openly criticize you, and some will just fade away without a word. None of that has to stop you. You were not put here to live a life small enough to keep everyone else comfortable. You were put here to grow, to push, to rise, and that means accepting that your reflection will inspire some but disturb others. The sooner you stop seeking universal approval, the freer you'll become. You will understand that the hate you face is not a sign you're doing something wrong. It's a sign you're moving in a direction that challenges the complacency of those around you. And while that might cost you relationships, it will earn you something far greater. The self-respect that comes from refusing to dim your light just to keep others from facing their own shadows. When people suddenly turn cold toward you, one of the most painful realities to accept is that jealousy can disguise itself as righteousness. They won't always say, "I'm jealous of you." Instead, they'll cloak it in criticism, moral superiority, or concern. They might frame their negativity as just being honest, or telling you what's best, when in truth, their words are laced with envy over your courage to do what they have not done. Jealousy rarely shows up in its raw form. It hides in jokes that sting, in unsolicited advice meant to plant doubt, in passive-aggressive comments that chip away at your confidence. And if you're not careful, you'll start to believe them, thinking maybe you are wrong for reaching higher or wanting more. The thing about jealousy is that it's not always malicious at the start. Sometimes it begins as admiration. They might see you working hard, achieving goals, stepping into your power, and at first they're inspired. They may even cheer for you. But as your progress becomes undeniable, admiration can turn into comparison. And comparison, if it feeds on insecurity, becomes resentment. Suddenly, they're no longer happy for you. They're unsettled by you. Your success starts to feel like their failure, even though the two are not connected. But in their mind, your wins are a spotlight on what they haven't achieved, and instead of confronting that truth, they try to dim your light so they don't have to feel the heat. This is where the silent war begins. They won't always attack you directly. That would make their intentions obvious. Instead, they may start with small things. They might point out flaws in your achievements, as if to remind you not to get too confident. They might start comparing your efforts to someone else's, subtly implying you're not as impressive as you think. They might even create stories about you, twisting the truth just enough to make others question your character. This is all done to shift attention away from your growth and back to their comfort zone. It's not about truth, it's about control. If they can plant seeds of doubt in others' minds, they can protect themselves from feeling left behind. The hardest part is when this jealousy comes from people you once trusted. Maybe it's a close friend, a co-worker you've shared struggles with, or even a family member who's seen your journey from the start. You expect strangers to doubt you, but when the people who claim to be in your corner start pulling away or subtly sabotaging you, it cuts deeper. That's because you thought your growth would be something they'd celebrate. But jealousy doesn't care about history. It doesn't care about shared memories or loyalty. It's driven by the deep discomfort of watching someone break free from limitations they themselves still live under. In moments like this, you'll be tempted to make yourself smaller to keep the peace. You'll think, maybe I should tone it down? Maybe I'm being too much? But that's exactly what jealousy wants. To shrink you to a size that doesn't challenge anyone. And the more you shrink, the more they win, because you've done the work of silencing yourself for them. You have to resist this urge. You have to remind yourself that your success, your progress, your ambition, they are not offenses. They are your right. You have worked for them, sacrificed for them, and no one has the authority to make you feel guilty for achieving them. It's also important to remember that jealousy is often a reflection of the other person's own inner battles. They may not even fully understand why they feel the way they do. All they know is that your presence stirs something uncomfortable inside them. That discomfort could be regret, fear, or self-doubt. But rather than confront it, they project it onto you. This is why trying to explain yourself or prove you're not a threat often doesn't work. They're not interested in the truth. They're interested in protecting their ego. And the easiest way for them to do that is by creating a narrative where you are the problem. You can't control how someone feels about your growth, but you can control how you respond to it. The key is not to fight jealousy with defensiveness or hostility. That only feeds the cycle. Instead, stay focused on your path. Keep doing the work. Keep showing up for yourself. The more you remain steady, the more their jealousy becomes their own burden to carry, not yours. Yes, it will be uncomfortable. Yes, it will hurt when people you care about start treating you like an enemy. But your job is not to dim your light to keep them from seeing their shadows. Your job is to keep moving forward. Even if that means leaving some people behind eventually, their jealousy will reveal itself to others without you having to say a word. Time has a way of exposing motives. People will see the pattern in their words and actions. They will notice the bitterness that leaks through their jokes, the way they downplay your efforts, the energy shift whenever your name comes up. And while that's not your goal, to be proven right, it will be a reminder that truth always comes to light, even when people try to bury it under envy. The reality is, the more you grow, the more you'll encounter this hidden resistance. You can't avoid it entirely. It's a byproduct of choosing a life of progress, but you can choose how you let it affect you. You can choose to see jealousy not as a threat, but as confirmation that you're moving in the right direction. If no one ever felt threatened by your progress, you probably wouldn't be making waves. So the next time you sense that shift in someone's tone, that subtle change in their behavior, that sudden chill where warmth used to be, don't shrink. Stand tall. Let them feel what they need to feel. Because their jealousy is not your burden. It's the silent proof that you've stepped into a version of yourself they never thought possible. Envy is one of the most powerful and destructive emotions humans can harbor. Yet it often wears the disguise of concern or constructive feedback. When someone starts hating you suddenly, one of the most common hidden drivers is their own jealousy. They may act as if they're giving you advice or pointing out flaws, but underneath that veneer of helpfulness lies a deep discomfort that your life, your choices, or your achievements are highlighting their own unfulfilled potential. The person who envies you doesn't always know how to articulate what they feel. They might even convince themselves that it's genuine care or honesty, but their actions tell the truth more clearly than their words ever could. They find ways to minimize your accomplishments, question your decisions, or subtly discredit your character in ways designed to make them feel more secure in their own stagnation. What's dangerous about envy is that it rarely announces itself. It's quiet, insidious, and often manipulative. You might not notice it at first. It shows up as backhanded compliments. Wow, you really went for that. I don't know if I could do that, but good for you, I guess. Or as advice that seems logical but is actually designed to plant doubt. Are you sure you're ready for that role? It's a lot of responsibility. They might share your private achievements with others in a twisted way, framing them as reckless or unearned. All of this is done to protect their own self-image. They're uncomfortable seeing someone else achieve what they haven't, so they project negativity onto you to level the field in their mind. This type of behavior often comes from a place of fear and insecurity. Your growth becomes a threat to their identity. If you can rise above challenges and create a life you want, then it implicitly asks the question, why haven't they done the same? It's easier to lash out at you than to confront that uncomfortable question. So instead of acknowledging your courage or applauding your efforts, they attempt to diminish you. They might try to rewrite the narrative of your life so that your success feels unearned or undeserved. Or they might exaggerate your mistakes to make your journey seem flawed. Their goal isn't to improve themselves. It's to prevent you from feeling superior in comparison to them. One of the most subtle forms envy takes is gossip. People who are jealous often speak about you to others instead of confronting you directly. They hope to sway public perception, to control the story, and to rally others into agreement with their distorted view. This creates an invisible battlefield where your reputation is under siege without you ever realizing it at first. The silent war they wage is strategic. They avoid overt conflict because that would require accountability. They prefer the quiet undermining that allows them to maintain the illusion of innocence while trying to destabilize your position or your peace of mind. The painful part is that this envy is rarely about anything concrete you've done wrong. It is about what you represent: ambition, courage, discipline, freedom, and growth. The more visible your achievements, the more threatening they appear to someone who is stuck in mediocrity or fear. When you post updates about your accomplishments, celebrate milestones, or simply embrace your self-confidence, they feel exposed. They see the gap between your life and the one they've allowed themselves to settle for. And instead of addressing their dissatisfaction, they redirect it toward you. You become the target of their discomfort, the person who must be diminished so they can maintain their fragile sense of self. Your response to this type of envy is crucial. You cannot control how others feel, and you cannot force them to cheer for you. You can, however, control your focus, your energy, and the boundaries you set. Recognize that these attacks are not reflections of your worth. They are reflections of their struggle. Do not waste time trying to explain, justify, or seek validation from someone whose perspective is clouded by jealousy. Your peace, your confidence, and your progress are too valuable to surrender to someone else's insecurities. It is also important to keep perspective on relationships in this context. People who project envy are not necessarily your enemies. They may have once been allies or friends. But when jealousy enters the equation, it changes the dynamic. You may have to distance yourself, limit exposure, or even let go entirely to protect your emotional and mental well-being. The silent war is not just about them. It's about safeguarding your own growth. Staying in an environment where envy is constantly undermining your confidence will eventually stunt your progress, no matter how strong you are. Choosing who to engage with and who to distance yourself from becomes a form of self-preservation. In addition, be mindful of your own reactions. It's easy to let envy provoke anger, defensiveness, or retaliation, but meeting jealousy with aggression only escalates the situation. The most powerful response is to continue thriving, to focus on your work, your goals, and your values. Your success becomes the ultimate response to their covert attacks. Over time, your consistency and your integrity will speak louder than any criticism they attempt to impose. The silent war will lose its hold because the truth of your effort, discipline, and accomplishments cannot be hidden. Finally, understand that envy is temporary if you maintain clarity and focus. People's feelings of jealousy may persist, but they will only affect you if you allow them to. By recognizing the pattern, protecting your energy, and remaining committed to your growth, you can navigate the challenges posed by those who feel threatened by your success. Their attacks, their criticism, and their hidden resentment are reflections of their internal battle, not a judgment of your life. The ultimate power lies in refusing to absorb their negativity, continuing to rise, and proving through your actions that your path is yours alone, and theirs is theirs to reconcile in their own time. When people start hating you suddenly, one of the most confusing and frustrating dynamics is that sometimes it has nothing to do with you at all. Their hostility, their criticism, and their coldness are often about their own unmet expectations, unhealed wounds, and insecurities. They may not even consciously realize why they feel the way they do. They just know that something about you triggers discomfort, irritation, or fear. It's a silent war you never signed up for, yet it plays out in subtle ways every day. The moment you begin asserting boundaries, making choices for your own well-being, or simply living authentically, you create a space where they must confront themselves indirectly, and not everyone can handle that confrontation. Some people are used to having a certain role in your life. They expect you to conform to their rules, their opinions, their timelines. You are the agreeable friend, the supportive coworker, the reliable family member, the one who quietly endured. And then something changes. Maybe you stop tolerating behavior that drains you. Maybe you pursue opportunities they wouldn't dare. Maybe you simply stop bending to fit into their comfort zone. Their response is often confusion first, followed quickly by resentment. Suddenly, they have to reconcile the fact that the you they relied on is no longer available in the same way. They feel displaced, threatened, or unimportant because your growth highlights their complacency. This discomfort can manifest as passive, aggressive behavior, gossip, or outright hostility. They might start questioning your decisions, doubting your motives, or criticizing your choices under the guise of concern. Sometimes they will withdraw entirely, leaving a void where warmth or friendship used to be. You might find yourself replaying conversations in your mind, trying to figure out what you did wrong, when the truth is that nothing you've done could have caused their reaction. It's about them, not you. Their emotions are reactions to their inner battles, not a reflection of your worth or actions. One of the most powerful realizations you can have is that their sudden hatred is often a mirror of their own unaddressed issues. Perhaps they fear change, envy your courage, or resent the progress they haven't made in their own lives. Your growth, your confidence, and your refusal to remain stagnant becomes a silent accusation. Why aren't you doing the same? And instead of channeling that realization into self-improvement, some people externalize it, directing anger and criticism at the one who is simply living authentically. They attempt to punish you for being what they secretly wish they could be. It's important to understand that these behaviors are strategic in a subconscious way. When people feel threatened, their instinct is to protect their sense of identity and control. You represent a challenge to their comfort, and comfort is sacred when it's built on avoidance or denial. That's why their tactics are often indirect. They may spread rumors, give backhanded compliments, or create narratives that make you seem undeserving of your success. The goal is to destabilize your confidence so you revert to being the safe, predictable version of yourself they can tolerate. They hope to manipulate the emotional landscape so that their insecurities remain unexposed. In these situations, your response must be intentional. Reacting in anger or trying to defend yourself usually plays into their plan. When someone hates you without justification, their energy is meant to provoke you, to elicit a reaction that confirms their perception that they have influence over your state of mind. The stronger approach is to remain steady, to maintain composure, and to focus on your own path. Your consistency and confidence are your most powerful tools because they demonstrate that you are unshakable and that their attempts to unsettle you cannot succeed. Setting boundaries is essential. You may need to limit exposure, reduce contact, or create physical and emotional distance from those whose envy or resentment threatens your peace. This is not about vengeance or proving them wrong. It's about protecting your energy and maintaining clarity. Being clear about who you allow close to you and who you let drift away ensures that your life is populated with individuals who genuinely support your growth. People who cannot handle your evolution will naturally recede, and their departure is not a loss but a liberation. It's also vital to remember that their reactions are temporary and their judgments are fleeting. You cannot control how they process their feelings, but you can control your response. You can choose to rise above, to continue building, achieving, and expanding without being dragged into unnecessary conflict. The silent war they wage loses power when you refuse to internalize it. What they think, say, or do is a reflection of their inner turmoil, not a verdict on your life. By keeping focus on your own trajectory, you ensure that their negativity becomes irrelevant. The subtle truth is that those who truly matter will remain. Friends, colleagues, mentors, and family who see your progress as inspiration rather than threat will stand by you. They will celebrate your wins, support your decisions, and grow alongside you. The people who react with sudden hate are simply revealing their own inability to cope with change. Their resentment is not a reflection of your value. It's a reflection of their limitations. And as you continue to move forward, those limitations will become increasingly visible while your resilience, vision, and integrity will shine. Ultimately, navigating the silent war requires self-awareness, emotional intelligence, and unwavering commitment to your own growth. Recognize the signs, understand the motives, protect your energy, and continue on your path without apology. The hatred, the jealousy, the envy, they are obstacles not for you to fight, but to rise above. By mastering your response, you maintain control over your life, your peace, and your purpose, allowing yourself to thrive in ways that others, caught in their own struggles, may never understand. One of the most disorienting experiences in life is when people you trusted begin to treat you with sudden hostility, as though you've committed an unspoken betrayal. This change often leaves you questioning yourself. Did I say something wrong? Did I fail them in some way? The truth is, their anger or disdain usually has little to do with you and everything to do with them. When people feel threatened, insecure, or inadequate, they often project those feelings onto others, creating a narrative that paints you as the source of their discomfort. It is not a reflection of your actions, character, or worth, but a mirror of their internal struggles and unhealed wounds. The first thing to understand is that this behavior is almost always rooted in fear. Fear of being outshone, fear of losing influence, fear of realizing that they are not where they want to be in life. Your progress, confidence, and clarity act as a spotlight, illuminating areas of their life they have avoided confronting. Your authenticity forces them to see the contrast between your courage and their stagnation. Some people respond to this by withdrawing silently, avoiding your presence to protect themselves from their own discomfort. Others become aggressive, subtle, or overt, attempting to undermine or criticize you in order to regain a sense of control over a world that suddenly feels threatening. It is essential to recognize the mechanisms of this silent war. Often, it manifests as small, calculated behaviors that destabilize your emotional equilibrium. They might gossip behind your back, twisting your words or actions to make you appear less capable or trustworthy. They might subtly minimize your achievements, offering faint praise that carries a hidden sting, designed to make you question your worth. Even body language and tone of voice can be weaponized. Slight pauses, dismissive gestures, and microaggressions all function to chip away at your confidence without ever exposing their motives fully. These tactics are indirect because the subconscious goal is not only to challenge you but to avoid accountability for their actions. Another layer of complexity is that these individuals are often people you once considered allies, friends, or even family. The deeper the history, the more disorienting their behavior can be, because you naturally assume trust and loyalty. You are conditioned to give the benefit of the doubt, to search for explanations in your own actions rather than consider that their hostility is about their inner insecurities. This is why it's crucial to develop emotional discernment, to learn to read beyond words and into behaviors, patterns, and consistency. The silent war is rarely fought with open confrontation. It's subtle, manipulative, and persistent. Recognizing it early is your first defense. When confronted with such dynamics, one of the most effective strategies is to focus on yourself. Their negativity cannot harm you unless you allow it to penetrate your sense of self-worth. Defensiveness over explanation, or attempts to appease them often fuel their sense of power and prolong the emotional struggle. Instead, maintaining composure, staying aligned with your values, and continuing your forward trajectory ensures that you retain control over your life and decisions. The most powerful response to those who secretly wish to destabilize you is to rise above, quietly demonstrating resilience and consistency in your actions rather than engaging in conflict. Setting clear boundaries is equally vital. Protecting your energy does not require confrontation. It requires awareness and discipline. Limiting exposure, carefully choosing whom to confide in, and maintaining distance from those who consistently respond with resentment or hostility preserves mental clarity. You are not obligated to win their approval or convince them of your integrity. Your growth, your focus, and your achievements are self-contained. They exist independently of the validation or criticism of others. Recognizing this allows you to operate from a position of empowerment rather than reaction, and it prevents the silent war from dictating your emotional state. It is also important to view this behavior as a reflection of human psychology, rather than a personal attack. People's negative responses to your growth are often rooted in projection. They project fears, limitations, and unfulfilled ambitions onto you because they lack the courage or awareness to confront these issues within themselves. Understanding this can help neutralize the emotional charge you might feel. By reframing their hostility as their struggle rather than your failure, you gain perspective and emotional detachment, which is critical for maintaining stability and continuing to thrive. Another critical point is that time exposes intentions. Over time, patterns become evident. Repeated criticism, subtle undermining, gossip, and jealousy reveal a consistent behavior rather than isolated incidents. Awareness of these patterns allows you to respond strategically rather than emotionally. You can adjust interactions, prioritize relationships that nurture your growth, and disengage from those that drain or destabilize you. This strategic awareness ensures that your focus remains on meaningful pursuits rather than the distractions created by those who secretly wish to see you falter. Finally, the ultimate power lies in your consistency and perseverance. When faced with hidden hostility, responding with grace, discipline, and dedication to your own path demonstrates that you are unshakable. The silent war is rendered ineffective because its objective is to provoke disruption, to elicit emotional overreaction, or to diminish confidence. None of these can succeed when you are grounded, aware, and unwavering. By mastering your internal state, controlling your energy, and maintaining focus on your own trajectory, you neutralize the impact of their negativity and continue to thrive regardless of who chooses to oppose, resent, or envy your progress. When people suddenly start treating you with hostility or disdain, it can feel like the ground has shifted beneath your feet. The reality is that sudden hatred is often less about your actions and more about the insecurities and fears of the other person. When someone harbors jealousy, resentment, or fear of being outshined, your growth becomes a mirror reflecting their own unfulfilled potential. They see in you the courage, discipline, or success they lack, and instead of confronting their inadequacies, they externalize them, directing blame, criticism, or negativity toward you. This is why the silent war often appears sudden. It's not about anything new you've done. It's about how your progress illuminates truths they've been avoiding. One of the most subtle forms of this hostility is manipulation through guilt or moral superiority. People may position themselves as concerned, responsible, or knowledgeable, offering advice or warnings that are really veiled attempts to control your behavior or instill doubt. They frame your ambition or choices as reckless, naive, or selfish, not because they are inherently wrong, but because your autonomy challenges their worldview. Your freedom and ability to act on your own terms becomes uncomfortable for them. And when discomfort becomes too strong, it can morph into resentment, criticism, and even silent attempts to isolate you from others who might recognize your growth and authenticity. Another key element is that the people who engage in this kind of subtle hostility often feel threatened by your confidence. When you step into your power, when you speak your truth, and when you act decisively, it forces them to confront the contrast between their own choices and yours. They might see you achieving goals they've dreamed about but never pursued. They might notice the discipline or resilience you demonstrate daily. And instead of using that observation as inspiration, some individuals respond with envy, criticism, or even sabotage. The goal is not rational, it is emotional self-preservation, a defense mechanism against the discomfort that your presence triggers. This phenomenon is especially pronounced in close relationships. Friends, family members, or colleagues who have witnessed your journey from the beginning may struggle the most. They have established expectations for who you are and how you behave, and when you exceed those expectations, it can feel destabilizing. If they have invested their identity in seeing you in a certain role, whether as a compliant friend, subordinate, or follower, they may react defensively. Your success or assertiveness threatens their comfort, and they may attempt to pull you back, consciously or unconsciously, to maintain equilibrium in their world. They may question your motives, downplay your achievements, or speak negatively about you to others in an effort to restore their sense of control. Understanding the psychology behind these reactions is crucial. The silent war waged by those who envy or resent you is not a reflection of your value. It is a projection of their own unprocessed emotions. Their criticisms, subtle attacks, and distancing behaviors are defense mechanisms designed to shield them from facing their insecurities. The more you shine, the more these insecurities are exposed, and the more intense their reaction can become. This is why you cannot rely on their approval or validation to gauge your worth. Their perspective is distorted by internal conflict, not by the reality of your character or accomplishments. Your response must be strategic. Reacting with anger, frustration, or defensiveness often validates their narrative and escalates the conflict. Instead, maintaining composure, focusing on your goals, and preserving your energy are forms of quiet strength. By continuing to rise above, you demonstrate that their attempts to unsettle you are ineffective. The silent war is neutralized when you refuse to engage emotionally, when you set boundaries, and when you prioritize your growth over their attempts to control or destabilize your journey. Your resilience and focus become the ultimate response, far more powerful than confrontation or argument. Boundary setting is essential in navigating this dynamic. Emotional and physical distance may be necessary to protect your well-being. Limiting interactions with those who consistently display resentment or hostility ensures that their negativity does not drain your energy or distract you from your path. You are not responsible for managing their feelings or correcting their perceptions. Protecting your mental and emotional space is a priority, and doing so does not require hostility. It requires clarity, discipline, and a commitment to your own progress. It is also important to remember that their negativity will often become visible over time. Patterns emerge: repeated criticism, passive-aggressive behavior, undermining actions, and inconsistent support. Recognizing these patterns early allows you to respond with awareness rather than reaction. It also reinforces the understanding that this behavior is about them, not you. Your value, your success, and your integrity remain intact regardless of how they choose to respond. Ultimately, the most effective way to navigate sudden hatred is to remain steadfast in your own path. Keep building, keep achieving, and keep living authentically. Your progress, discipline, and consistency are the strongest responses to envy and resentment. Those who cannot accept your growth will eventually reveal themselves, and their departure from your life will create space for people who celebrate, support, and align with your journey. By maintaining focus, setting boundaries, and refusing to internalize negativity, you rise above the silent war, preserving your peace, confidence, and momentum in a way that envy and hostility cannot touch.